Are we live? Stare in the camera. Don't look at each other.
Okay. I'm just going to stare at the little white dot on my.
You have to stare at the camera. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. This is Mike Brooks here with Frank DiBenedetto, and I'm staring at the camera. It's the hardest thing to do when you're on a live stream.
Yeah, I can't do it. It's too weird.
I've been watching a lot of the recordings that we do, and I noticed that all I do is like stare at you, and you're looking at the top of my head, and I'm like, so like, you know, we're talking to the audience here. We got to stare at the camera. It's the hardest thing ever.
It is weird. I don't know that I could be like a news broadcaster. Maybe if there was like a teletype prompter, you know, where you're reading, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I've looked down again. I can't help it.
Anyway, today's a holiday, Mike. You brought me out on a holiday.
I did. I brought you out on a holiday, and we're recording. Of course, this is the Elevating IT podcast recorded live here on Facebook and YouTube, and it is 4th of July weekend. So we have drinks. It's drink time. What are you drinking, Frank?
Cheers. Yeah. So I've got a cool beer that I like. It's from 21st Amendment. Let's see.
Let me look at your beer. We'll do show and tell. You do yours first. Hang on. Let me pay attention. Now I'm looking at the screen. All right.
You got it. All right. Hell or High Watermelon wheat beer, 21st Amendment. It had this. There's I don't even know if they're open anymore. There's a restaurant pre-pandemic that had like 30 some odd beers on tap, and this was one of the ones that they haven't. I don't like IPA beer. I hate the taste of IPA. It reminds me of when you brush your teeth and go downstairs and drink orange juice. It's that like real bitter citrus taste.
I can't believe I'm friends with you.
So anyway, there you go. 21st Amendment. So I'm having a beer just for you.
All right. So I am not drinking an IPA. I'm drinking a double IPA. So this is Lawson's finest.
What do they put? Like they put soap in that? Like what's? I can't imagine.
It's not. Maybe it's not a double IPA, but it's very. Let's see what it is.
Hoppy.
It's like 9%, like 8% alcohol. Look at that. It's a big beer, but this is one of the best. This is a Vermont beer. This is one of the great Vermont beers. I'm lucky that it's a Vermont beer that they make in Connecticut. So how about that?
Connecticut beer.
No, it's so Lawson's Finest Liquids is a family-owned, award-winning brewery, tap room, and retail store located in the Mad River Valley of Vermont. Sip of Sunshine is brewed by Lawson's Finest Liquids in Stratford, Connecticut, right here at Two Roads Brewing Company. Two Roads is an awesome beer as well. So everybody else, hope we're cheers to you all. Happy if you're in the United States, happy 4th of July, happy Independence Day. If you're in Canada, happy Canada Day. And if you're somewhere else, happy whatever day it is.
Friday, right? It's Friday.
So let us know in the comments. Please leave a comment so we can say, see you, say hi to us. Let us know you're here. Let us know what beverage, alcoholic, non-alcoholic, that you're drinking. And we're going to talk today about, now that we've talked about our alcoholic beverages, we're going to talk about our brand new category that we launched, that we put into the app yesterday. And we did that for a reason, because we just held a webinar. Actually, you were a guest on Robin Robbins' webinar for Technology Marketing Toolkit. And that was a pretty big honor. Like I thought it was, you did a great job, by the way, fantastic job. And she's got a strategy that, and I'll let you talk about it, but I'll pre-frame it here. She's got a new strategy that she has rolled out to her clients called, I think, the 10-minute call, which is a prospecting tool. And she's got some great content that she created. I mean, all her content's amazing. Yeah. And it really fit like a glove with what we were doing with audIT. So I'll let you kind of talk about it a bit here, Frank, as I take a drink.
Yeah. Well, I think that, before we get into that, though, we need to just talk about, the kind of impact that Robin's program has on a lot of MSPs from a marketing standpoint. And I've been part of her program for about 12 years now. And, a large majority of my success over these years is because of the things that I've learned on the marketing side or some of the third-party speakers and vendors that she's exposed me to. So definitely, owe her a debt of gratitude for that. Her program is awesome, and, I really enjoy being in there. From an early start, most of the marketing would have an offer, and a lot of times the offer would be for an assessment. It's pretty. I think most industries that are service based, have that kind of offer, an assessment. But in this case, I think over the years it's evolved. It went from a network assessment to remember there was a cloud readiness assessment. Now we're talking about cybersecurity assessments, and Robin's been really good at providing marketing to us that's relevant for the times, right? So, like network assessment was a little bit, more when you had like a closed environment with a server in house, and then cloud, kind of came after that, and certainly cybersecurity. And I think the 10-minute call is really, once again, Robin pivoting with the times and providing, great content to her members, especially to Producers Club, that it's driven off of the, people are a little bit less likely to want you to come to their office right now and do a full assessment. So it's a little bit driven off of this ability to do a call. Like a lot of people, you say, hey, you have 5 minutes, so people feel guilty and saying no. So it's kind of, based off that. So she put together this awesome campaign. I haven't used it yet. It's pretty new. But she was, talking about some of the stats, and I think she was saying upwards of like 10% response rate, where people were booking appointments, and those were like cold lists. And I don't even think some of those people were following the whole marketing program that you put together. So there's a letter that you would mail, and you'd follow up with some calling and or LinkedIn emails. So I mean, it seems to be working really well. So where we got involved was if you know the audit story, is I created audIT because I wanted to solve for the deliverable of that assessment, right? I couldn't figure out a good way to present, and as IT has gotten more complicated over the years and a little bit more expensive, and it's hard for our prospects to compare. And what they end up doing is defaulting to price, and you end up losing deals, or it's a race to zero, which is never a good idea. That's really where audIT came around. So it was really like a good pairing of marketing paired with a good way to close the sale, right? And then upsell and cross sell. So that's been the synergy here. So Robin had reached out, and we talked about this new call and campaign, and she said, do you think there's some way for us to be able to deliver these results, kind of change up the deliverable, especially if we're considering this is like a 10-minute Zoom call. And that's really what we came up with. So first and foremost, if you're in Robin's program, which you absolutely should be, but if you're in it and you're an audit user, you already have this. It's already in the app. So as we talk a little bit more about that, it's, you don't have to ask the question, when's this coming? It's there already. If you're not in Producers Club, or you're not a client of Technology Marketing Toolkit, you could still use this, although you're not going to have access to her content and her material. But that's kind of what we did. So the webinar went great. We were on the call for over 2 hours, and over 200 people were still on at the end asking questions. So it was an honor to spend that much time with her, and I thought it was well moderated, and some great questions were asked. So that's kind of what we did. I'm going to take a sip of my beer. Let you jump in.
And I'll just say hi to a couple people here. Chris said he caught it yesterday. Great job, and he said he signed up this morning. So thanks, jumping on board, Chris. You need anything, you reach out to us. I sent you emails, I'm sure. When you signed up, I send out all the emails. So welcome. And let's see, Jimmy Howard is saying hola from Tejas, drinking Covifi.
What is that? Is that a beer? Or is that coffee?
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a Trump misspelling, or if that's a coffee or some kind of cerveza. Chris says cool. And let's see. Oh, that's cool. Chris is chatting with Jimmy. You're in Austin. How about you? Cool. Yeah. So we can actually show this, because I feel like I'm the king of technology today.
Yeah,
I'm not like the most technologically, like I'm a sales marketing person, that technologically I'm not so good at it. I have a MacBook Pro here, and I figured out how to put a second monitor on here so I can share my screen. That's like a huge accomplishment for me.
We'll do that. I'll tell you a funny story. So, I've learned whenever you have these big webinars, you got to double and triple check everything. You got to have contingencies like, hey, if I can't get online or something's not working, like, let me make sure I've printed it and I've PDF'd it. So I went through the whole thing early part of the day, was pretty reasonably confident everything was I was in good shape. I even rebooted the computer ahead of time. I figured, I want the big update thing to pop up. And I was working with one of my staff on something. We were doing a screen share, and it looked like my computer froze. So he could hear me, and I know I'm all frustrated. I'm like, wonderful. Like, here's where my computer, blows up like 2 hours before, a real big webinar. And it turns out my mouse batteries died.
Oh,
and I was thinking, I was 2 hours away from having to like excuse myself in the middle of this huge webinar and have to go get batteries and put them in my mouse. So, anyway, the gods were working against me, but I defeated them this time. So, Mike, I think what's worth mentioning is that audit items are like sort of the center of the bullseye of audit, right? It's where everything kind of works its way out from. And these are really anything that you might decide that you want to report on for a prospect or a client. And I want to remind everybody that the intent here is to help you close a deal and get a new client. And I think everybody would agree that you don't have to give that prospect a PhD in IT in order to convert them into a client. However, a lot of MSPs, because we're of our tech background and our nature, completely lose sight of that. And that's exactly what we're doing, probably while not even realizing we're doing it. And then we force them to look at the proposal, look at the bottom line, compare us to someone else who's cheaper, and potentially lose that deal. So I'm not sure how many audit items we have now. There's probably 70 or 80, I think. And we're constantly adding new ones. The initial ones came from me as a source MSP when we first put this together, and then over the years, our subscribers have made suggestions, and we've added more, and we always have more coming too as vendors come to us and ask us about possibly participating in here. But these audit items are anything that you might decide that you want to report on. Now, some of these represent things that you might have to use some we'll call them scanning tools. These might be ones that that you would use to run across the network and pull some tech data, and other ones are ones that you might source more from a business discussion. So what we decided was, if you have 10 to 15 minutes on a call with a prospect, you can't ask them something that's so complicated that they can't answer it, right? Because it would kind of defeat the purpose. And again, the whole purpose of the 10-minute call was to educate them and intrigue them enough to want to then book the full assessment with you. So like if we were to click on something like dark web monitoring, I see you're close to it. Yeah, click there. So, what we did was, if you click summary statements, we've pre-filled the system with summary statements. So if you look here, these are like what a red, yellow, and green might be. And on the call, what you would be doing, instead of your traditional fact finding while you're live with the prospect, what you're doing on the call is sort of listening to see what they say, and you should be able to retrofit them into one of the three. Now, not every MSP is going to love, the content we have here. So what you can do ahead of time is you could always add, additional summary statements that might be a little bit more like what you might use. But the idea here is you should have enough statements that no matter what the prospect says to you, you should be able to pick one of these on the fly, right? So, if we go back, another one of the ones that, we had selected was security awareness training. Like, again, that's something that you might ask the prospect. And so here's security awareness training. Again, if you click on summary statements, we've got summary statements in there already. So depending on, where they might fit, here's some statements that you might use. When we group together 9 audit items, that forms a category, right? And the categories then are the building blocks of the audit. So what we did is we created a category called rapid assessment. And really this is, designed, it's 9 audit items that are designed to allow you to rapidly assess the critical technology of this prospect. And if you scroll down just a little bit, we can see we have dark web monitoring. Now that one was one of the ones where you wouldn't ask them. But you can use any one of the great dark web monitoring vendors. We have a few of them in the app if you're not sure who to use. You could do a scan ahead of time, right, for your prospect. And if you find some credentials, which is likely these days, you could always note that when you get to that section, but you don't have to ask that question. So that's kind of really like 8 questions, and the 9th one is dark web monitoring. Employee productivity monitoring. I know in my own MSP, that's probably the number one question that I've gotten from existing clients over the last 30 to 60 days is, do we have any way to monitor what our employees are doing? And it doesn't come from a position of distrust or mistrust. It comes from a position of like, we have our entire workforce remote, right? We've never done this before at this capacity for this extended period of time. And if you're running a business, you really do want to make sure that your employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that everybody's working efficiently and that there's no bottlenecks. So we think that's a great one. And remember, when we're asking questions about these categories, you're very much planting a seed in the prospect's head. They may never even have thought about this, right? But if I ask that question, hey, are you doing any kind of employee productivity monitoring? You start thinking like, crap, no. Mobile device management. We have, what else? Password management, security awareness training, 2-factor authentication, unified communications, virtual private network, and workstations. So these were the 9. Robin asked me, to put together 9 that I thought as an MSP would be more easily answered by a CEO or somebody at the business that was a decision maker without having to go searching around for tech information. Arguably, we know there's hundreds of other data points that you might want to gather, but we want to do like a smattering, and we're also trying to make it relevant for the current climate that we're in, right? So employee productivity monitoring, asking about 2-factor authentication or the workstations, things like that will lend themselves more to the current climate that we're in, where we have a lot of people working remotely. So if we go back to categories, what you could do also, if you didn't like that category, you could actually clone. I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. Just go to templates now, right? So a template now is actually an entire collection of categories. And in this case, it only contains 1 category, right? Because we only want to do a 9-point audit. So when we click on it, this is what it looks like visually, right? We have 9 points in the upper left quadrant, and these are the ones we've selected. Now, if you go back to templates, what you could do is you could clone it. So if you clone this template here, now if you go in and edit it, you can decide, let's go edit that real fast, that you can change this up. So what you could do is always go in and you could add additional audit items if you wanted to the category, and then you can pull things out. So if you said, I don't offer employee productivity monitoring, it's not something I want to start asking because I don't have a solution for that, you could take that out. You could put whatever other audit items you want on there. So the point is you can make this your own. You can pick your own 9. You can change the order and the weighting whatever way you want. And then you make it your own. So let's go in and actually, if you wanted to, we can kind of talk about what we did yesterday. So if we go to the audit trail and you create a new audit, we pretend this is a prospect here. Time for a little watermelon beer. Yep.
It's a baseline audit.
Yep, and there it is, right? You click it. Now you can. Now, if you were on the call with the the client, or I'm sorry, the prospect, this is where you would basically be. This is what you'd be looking at, right? And then when you're talking to the other person, they don't see your screen at that point, and you'd start asking them questions. So like if I'll give you an example, we're not going to go through 9 boxes, but if I said, hey, let's talk about, I'm going to ask you a few questions about two-factor authentication. This is certainly something that you've probably heard of, but we know that only having passwords is not the best way to protect your applications and your PII. And, we would simply ask them, do you have two-factor authentication deployed across all the apps that you're using in your environment? And, as Robin and I discussed, she's like, I know we have it in a lot, but I'm certain it's not on all of them, right? And to be honest, I don't know any company that's probably going to be able to answer yes across every board, absolutely, right? But what we're doing is we're planting the seed because we want them to start thinking about that, right? We want them to say, yeah, I don't know if my current IT guy is doing this. This is something we really should be doing. And I think they will appreciate the thought-provoking conversation that this leads to. So, we might pick that second yellow or the first yellow there. They have it, but it's not for everybody, right? So click on that. And then we're going to go through. So Mike, why don't you go through quickly and, pick some red, green, or yellow as though we were having this conversation.
Yeah, I think you're doing really bad here, Frank.
Yeah.
A lot of reds.
You got to throw me a green somewhere.
We'll see. We'll see how you're doing.
Mm.
Maybe I'll throw you green.
We get like a 0. There we go.
You got a green there. You're doing okay.
So if we've had this conversation now, we go look at our dark web.
You have a ton of stuff on the dark web. So.
All right. So now what we have, we can see, hey, this person scored a 33, but, we're going to want to present something back to them. We know that probably emailing isn't the best idea because you may never hear from them. So what we have is the ability to generate a PowerPoint. I usually leave off the infographics and or the financial summary, but in this case you have them checked, so that's fine. But what this does is it's going to create a slide deck because we think it's a whole lot easier to say, hey, let me share my screen real quick. So this is the point where, if I was the prospect, and you were the client, you'd share your screen.
Figure out how to get this on the right place. Let's see.
This is where you fall apart from the text standpoint.
This is where I can't get it over.
So if everybody's listening right now, I just want you to see who's the guy who's now falling apart tech-wise here. God, Mike.
How do I get it over to? I didn't think about getting the PowerPoint. It's not going.
Is it on another screen?
Yeah, it's on my
drag it over.
Screen.
Drag it to this screen.
I'm dragging it. It's not going. It's going off to the side. Huh.
Drag it the other direction.
Drag it in the other direction.
Yeah, like if you think you're going right, drag it left and see if it comes onto the screen.
Let's see what happens if I do it as a slideshow. Here, wait a second. Let's play it as a slideshow. See if it. Oh, look at that. There it is.
Glad I did the webinar yesterday and not you.
Yeah, so, believe me, I'm glad you did too.
So basically what you'd be able to do is step forward into this and go to the next screen. I'd say, hey, listen, this is the results real quick. It's only a 9-point audit. You scored a 33. And if you go to the next screen, this kind of summarizes what we talked about. I'd like to send this report to you in an email, as a PDF attachment. But there's certainly some things here that I think that warrants a further discussion. And there's also a lot more than 9 things that we would normally assess if we were there. And so the intent is to get the appointment now. And hopefully at that point you have a better chance of getting the appointment. And then you go in and you do the full audit. And then you could propose your solution, and everybody knows how that system works from there. But that 10-minute call is really designed for you to do this like little mini assessment. Here's the other thing I think is important: is it gives you an opportunity also to show them what this is going to look like. Because I don't know if you've ever seen what a lot of MSPs and what I used to use, but it's daunting, right? And the report that you have, that's like 1,000 pages of stuff. And, if you go out a company and say, here's what this is going to look like, except there'll be another 1,000 pages, I think that you might end up in a situation where they're not too willing to book that appointment. When they see this, they'll automatically get the sense of, oh, wow, this is actually, I can understand this, right? And so if you come on site and do an expanded assessment, it's going to be an expansion of this, and this is the deliverable. And so I think you have a good opportunity here, to be unique. Again, as an MSP, I know I've never run up against anybody else using audIT. I've done this. I've heard tons of times from prospects, wow, this is so much easier to understand. Nobody else has presented it like this. They just show up with a proposal. So I know that I have the competitive advantage, and we're by no means at a saturation point out there in the industry. There's plenty of room. So I do quite a few assessments out there. Not too many other people that I know in my area that do it. Not begging for the competition, but nonetheless, at the end of the day, what we're doing as MSPs is we're doing a better job for the SMB, the small to mid-sized business. And the way I look at it is even if somebody came along and used audIT as well, and they won the deal instead of me, I think that just by using audIT, that business has a better opportunity to buy, and they'll end up with the right technology. So whether they get it from me or another MSP, we still did our job as an industry, and we got that business the technology solutions that they need, and they desperately need now. I mean, there's a lot of businesses that are hurting. So
cool. Well, I got to put up a couple comments here. So this is a great one. I got to stop sharing the screen. So again, there we go. This is I love this. First month as a subscriber, this auditing tool literally gave me the tool I need to acquire a $28,000 contract. Thanks, audIT for IT. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Jake. That was I think my video just froze.
I like that picture too.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love that.
Yeah, congratulations. That's really awesome. I love these types of comments. So
let's see what else we got. I think I've frozen in place now. That's the problem with my.
You are frozen in place, Mike.
So let's see. Joe, Chicago's watching and trying to eat lunch in Chicago. North Texas, no crazy cerveza, just strong coffee. All right. Hopefully Calvin from New York City will join us as well. Looks like Chris is pulling people in on. Chris is watching on YouTube live, so Chris is giving shout outs and spreading the word. Thank you for doing that, Chris. It's awesome. Appreciate that. Watching videos. Chris, he's referring back to when you said, when you were talking about employee awareness training or employee monitoring, right? He's knowing exactly what the employees are doing.
Let me give a shout out to that vendor, Mike. So the one that we just signed up with, and that we're gonna partner with, and I think we're gonna be doing a webinar with them soon, is ActiveTrack. It's pretty cool software. You're able to deploy it through your RMM tool, and it's not like just spy software. I mean, it really takes a look at the apps that the employee is using, and it uses the learning knowledge that they've gathered across their entire community to categorize the apps, and then it's able to determine, is this a business function or is this like playtime? And of course, it keeps track of idle time. So if somebody ghosts the business at like 11 to 1 and there's no activity, it'll show that. And it's a way to kind of look. And what you can do is you can see who your most productive employees are and what they're doing, and the ones who aren't, maybe gives you, an opportunity to make some management decisions of, trying to solve for that. So ActiveTrack is pretty cool. Check them out.
Yeah, it's I'm torn. I like it. It sounds like a great tool, but I also, as a employee, it sounds that is some big brother stuff right there. Some big brother stuff. So cool. Well, that was a great demo of the system. So it is 2:30. We've been on for about 30 minutes. Thanks everybody for joining us. I think it's probably time for us to get back to work, right?
Time to go back to work. I got to punch back in.
Time to get back to work. We're for those of you listening to the recording of the podcast on iTunes, we did a lot of visual work this week. We went over. It may be a little confusing if you're listening to this on the podcast, because we actually had the screen going when it worked for me. So if you are listening on iTunes or on the Elevating IT pod site, head over to auditforit.com look for the blog post that we did. We recorded this on July 3rd, day before July 4th, day before Independence Day. So you'll find that there to see the visuals that went along with this. And as me and Frank are saying to you all, cheers. Have a great weekend. Happy 4th of July. Happy Canada Day. Watermelon beer. I'm just shaking my head at that. I don't understand.
The key takeaway, Mike. It's a key takeaway. Heller High, watermelon, 21st Amendment Brewery wheat beer. You're drinking a Connecticut beer that claims to be from Vermont, so I'm not quite sure what you got.
Vermont beer that's made in Connecticut. You know.
Cheers. Happy holidays, everybody. Be safe.
Cheers, everybody. Have a great week.